right. Well, we are moving into a new month, and we're going to start a new series that kind of came up just the last few weeks. We've been talking, kind of Kim and I have been talking, and then our Bible study we've been talking, and every once in a while we bring up things that are Bible stories or references that get mentioned here and there. And at one point in time, we had a conversation that we noticed that a lot of people didn't understand all the things we were talking about. I'd talk about a story that was going on in the Old Testament, or we'd hear a name that was used, and I'd say, oh, that's a good biblical name, and somebody's like, oh, that's in the Bible, and the more we started talking about that, the more we realized we spend a lot of time. I was telling our youth this morning, we spend a lot of time talking about Jesus, which we need to. You need to know a lot about Jesus. But we got a whole other part of the Bible, this Old Testament part that's really before Jesus, kind of the setting up everything to come. We don't spend a lot of time there. In fact, a lot of us have kind of just said, okay, well, that's that other book, and maybe I'll read some of the Psalms because they're pretty, and I'll read some of the cool stories to my kids, like this humongous ark that they fill full of animals, and that's pretty awesome, or some guy that gets tossed into a lion's den, or a guy that goes and tries to take on all of Egypt and leads the people out by splitting the water, and he walks across it. And we remember some of those cool, big stories in the Old Testament. But we forget that there's a whole lot of other stuff there. I mean, the Old Testament's like twice as big as the New Testament, and there's so much stuff there, but there's so much we don't know about it. There's so much we don't understand about it. And so we're going to end up being more like 2 months, but there's going to be stuff in between camps and things like that. But about 2 months, going back and talking about the ancient things way back in the past. Why do we need to learn them? The stories of the people found in the Old Testament. There are a lot of people in the Old Testament. There are a lot of people that we know, Moses and Abraham and Adam and Eve and Daniel and David. And then maybe some lesser ones we know, like Solomon's and Caleb's and Jacob's and Ruth's and Esther's, and then some less known ones that get even more difficult to remember what they did, like Habakkuk and Jehoshaphat and Zerubbabel. That's one we brought up. I told the youth that's what we wanted to name Ransom, and by we I mean me. And I got vetoed on that one. I really thought that with this 50-50 thing that I had a shot, but did not have a shot. We did not get Zerubbabel, not even as a middle name. I was pushing anywhere in there as a footnote or something. Ransom, Joshua, Zerubbabel, Barnes, or something. I just wanted a Z or a name with an X, Xerxes. He wouldn't let me have Xerxes either. All good biblical names. Xerxes, not so much. He was an evil king. But other than the fact that he's an evil king, Ransom. And so couldn't get any of those names. But we hear these names, and some of them are familiar, and some are kind of familiar, and some are nowhere near being familiar. We're like, who are these people? And why do we have that whole big old section in the front of our book that's really boring sometimes? Because any of us that tried to read the thing from front to back, first couple chapters pretty cool, some neat things happening. We build everything, we destroy everything, and we build a tower in the between. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. But after that, snooze. There's a lot of chapters in Leviticus, a lot of chapters in Numbers. All right, if you're a man, you can get through that. That's great. You're a powerful, mighty person if you can work your way through those books. And so we think that's everything. That's it. Man, it's a snooze fest. But it's not. So I want us to spend a little bit of time talking about the Old Testament. And the reason I want to talk about the Old Testament is because I think the Old Testament, if we really get into it, is a little more meaningful to you and to me. The New Testament's great. I mean, it's like a comic book. It's full of guys that walk on water and, do some really, really cool stuff. I mean, shoot laser beams out of their eyes and everything. I mean, the New Testament's got it all. It's like a modern action film. I mean, there's great stuff happening. People die, they come back to life. I mean, it's cool. Tons of cool stuff happens. Angels coming down, talking to people, zapping everything around, people knocking over unconscious. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. I love it. But it's not everything. The Old Testament, I think, is a little more meaty. It's a little more real because because people don't get to shoot lasers out of their eyes, and the guys that we're looking at are not people that are like walking on water all the time. And I think sometimes reading the New Testament, we get this idea that, man, every preacher wants me to be Jesus, and I can't do that. Every preacher wants me to be perfect, and I can't do that. I messed up. I don't know about you, but I mean, I've got a really small book where I record times I mess up, and it's nearly halfway full. But I mess up a lot. Kim's shaking her head. It's a big book. It's a gigabyte hard drive, and it's still having problems, and the terabytes and stuff. And no, I've messed up a time or two. I've messed up some. Have you messed up any? Yeah, I messed up a bunch. And then I go read that New Testament stuff, and Paul's like, be like Jesus. And I'm like, be like Jesus? I'm having a hard time, being like somebody that's not him. I'm having a hard time being like one of the small guys, like maybe, Nathaniel, the disciple. We don't know anything about him, but I'm having a hard time being like him. All he did was sit under a tree, and I still can't do that very well. I can't do that stuff good. I can't do that stuff well. I'm broken. You ever woken up and said, I'm broken? There's something wrong with me? There's something bad about me? I mess up. Not only do I mess up, but I mess up my messing up, and I miss things and get it wrong, and then I get the things I get wrong, and then I'm repeating that cycle over and over again. And I read that New Testament, and Jesus says, be holy as I'm holy, and Paul keeps talking about being righteous, and James talks about doing the stuff of God, and I can't do that. And I think sometimes we have the Old Testament to remind us there are some screwed up people in this world, and I are one of them. And God still has chosen to work through some of those people. Now, you may not know all the names. We're going to talk about a guy today. His name is Jacob. Jacob is probably one of those Bible names you maybe remember hearing, but maybe don't remember a lot about who Jacob is. And so I want to remind you a little bit about who Jacob is. Let's look at the story of who Jacob is. We'll read the verse, and then we're going to figure out. He deceives. The name Jacob actually means the guy that deceives. Great name, mom and dad, to give a kid. Hey, you know what? This guy's going to be a real prankster. All right. Genesis chapter 25, verses 23 and following, says, and the Lord told her, the sons in your womb. She's having twins, all right? We don't have a lot of those in the Bible. We've got twins going on. The sons in your womb will become two nations. From the very beginning, the two nations will be rivals, and one nation will be stronger than the other, and your older son will serve your younger son. And when the time came to give birth, Rebekah discovered that she did indeed have twins. And the first one was very red at birth and covered with thick hair like a fur coat. So they named him Esau. And the other twin was born with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when the twins were born. So Jacob means to grab at a heel, but in old Hebrew language, to grab at someone's heel means to fool them, to trick them, to deceive them. And so he's named the one that grabs the heel, but he's named the deceiver. And you want to know something? I don't think I like this guy. I know I'm supposed to. All right, I'm going to take you in a time machine. I'm going to move you forward a little bit. Jacob's an important guy. He ends up becoming the father of like this whole tribe of people called the Israelites. And when you talk about the 12 tribes of Israel, this guy has 12 sons. I know, he's busy. He has 12 sons, and those 12 sons become the father of each of the 12 tribes of Israel. So this guy's pretty important, right? This guy's pretty important. I don't like him. I got to whisper that in church because I don't want God to hear me, that I don't like some of his people. I don't like this guy. He's coming out of the womb, already grabbing his brother's heel, and everything he does from this point on, he is a trickster. I think one of the reasons I don't like him is because I like to trick people, and I don't like people that try to trick me. You ever notice that about tricksters? They like to dish it out all day long. You try to pull something over them, they get, hey, why'd you do that? All right, maybe that's why I don't like him so much, because he's too much like me. I don't think I like the fact that this guy deceives. I don't think I like the fact that he's a trickster. But I'm supposed to, right? I'm supposed to like him. He's in the Bible. He's got like a whole bunch of chapters written about him. And every time we get a list of people like, hey, you got to love God. The God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'm like, he's in that list. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. I'm supposed to like him. But I don't. He's a scumbag. He's a bum. I don't think I like him. You ever woken up and really wonder if God could like you? Hey, look what I'm doing. Look what I've been a part of. Look at my past. Look at my history. Look at where I've been. Look at what I've done. Sometimes I don't like me. I know I don't like him. Here, let's look. Let's look at some of the things he did. He's a dirty, rotten thief, stolen blessings. Really, I don't like him. Genesis 27, verse 18. So Jacob took food to his father. Let me give you a way back thing here for a second. Back then, they took word of mouth really seriously. You know, you shook a hand, you made a deal, that was a deal. You know, nowadays, if you ever bought a house, it took like 2 hours for us to buy a house when we went to the place because we had a stack of papers like this thick, and I had to sign 5,000 different things to say, I agree to do these things. We don't trust anybody. Back then, you shake somebody's hand, you say, this is the deal, that's the deal. All right? That was the deal. You said something, you meant it. And that was it. And Jacob, this trickster guy, this deceiver, when he was younger, he was sitting around, he made some stew and stuff. His brother, who was the guy who was like the jock, always out going doing sports. Sports back then was picking up big rocks and stuff, riding on the back of brontosauruses and things like that. Sports back then was going out and hunting wildlife, but you didn't do it with, you know, a rifle or anything. It was like, you know, one of those little bow and arrows that you made, or, you know, you chase them down and grab them with your hands or whatever. I don't know. Esau was a hoss. He was like a big bear of a man, and I'm guessing that he hunted them with his bare teeth or something. But he did that stuff. He'd go out all the time, hunt these animals, and he came back once, and he was just wiped out. He had been out hunting all day. He was doing all of his manly stuff, picking up rocks and stuff, showing off for the girls, and he came back, and he was wiped out. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't had anything to drink. And Jacob is like, hey, man, you look really tired. He's like, oh, okay, there's just a little bit of the stuff. He's like, hey, I'll give you some of the soup if you give me your birthrights. Which, you know, just words. I mean, how many times have we said, hey, you know, I'll give you $1 million if you let me have that candy bar. All right. I think I've said that to lots of people. I've never given anybody $1 million. And, you know, Esau's like, hey, dude, it's my brother. Yeah, sure, whatever. Just give me some of that food. And so he's like, all right, cool. But remember, back then, your word was your promise. And the birthright was his right as the oldest son. As the oldest son, he was going to inherit the majority of the stuff that his dad had. He was going to inherit the name, the family. All that stuff was going to become his. And Jacob tricked his brother when he was tired and thirsty and worn out into giving that all up to him for just a bowl of soup and some water that he probably could have gotten if he just walked down the road just a little bit farther. And so here the deceiver keeps it up. This time, Dad's about to die, and Dad has his final wishes. I'm about to die. He's old. His eyes are all covered so he can't see anything. He's blind, and he's about to give away his last blessings. And he tells Esau, Esau, I'm going to give you my last blessings, but we're going to do it the proper way. We're going to come, and we're going to sit down and have a meal together like men, and I'm going to give you your proper blessings. And so Esau goes off to, you know, catch a wild deer with his teeth and bring it back. And Jacob's like, wow. Jacob's mom's like, oh, we got this in the bag. And Jacob goes out to the farm and picks up a young goat and cooks it up. And then he puts furry stuff all over his hands. He wears like fur gloves that his mom has, I guess. And comes in and pretends to be his brother. Dad's so blind he can't see. He can feel stuff. He feels that his hands are furry. And we get Jacob coming in there, taking this food to his father. So Jacob took the food to his father. My father, he said, yes, my son. Isaac answered, who are you, Esau or Jacob? Are you your older brother Esau, or is it you, Jacob? And Jacob replied, I'm Esau. It's Esau, your firstborn son. He's a liar. I don't like him. Did I tell you that? I don't like this guy. It's Esau, your firstborn son. I've done as you told me. Here's the wild game. Now sit up and eat it so you can give me your blessing. But Isaac said, oh, so you can give me your blessing. And that's exactly what he does. He gives him his blessing. He blesses him, and all this great stuff happens. And then as soon as he's walking out, Esau comes back in carrying the animal in his teeth or something. That probably really didn't happen, but I just imagine him doing that. And carrying in his teeth, saying, oh, dear, I got your deer. And his dad's like, I can't hear you, what? He's like, I'm back. I got it. He's like, you were back 5 minutes ago. Like, that wasn't me. I just got back. And Esau is like, but Isaac says, your brother was here, and he tricked me. Esau, oldest brother, doing all the work, getting everything done. Son's just staying at home. Don't you hate that brother? The brother that just chills out at home, watching TV all day, hanging out with mom, making cookies. Do you want to try one again, Jacob? Thanks, Mom. And Esau coming in is like, I've been working all day. You got something for me? Oh, no, Jacob ate the last of the cookies. And Esau, nothing. He works all day. He does all this stuff. He comes back and he tells Dad, Dad, I'm here. And he says, your brother, he tricked me and has taken away your blessings. And Esau exclaimed, no wonder his name is Jacob, the deceiver. For now he has cheated me twice. First he took my rights as the firstborn, and now he's stolen my blessings. Oh, haven't you saved even one blessing for me? And don't read the Old Testament, because it's full of scumbags like this. And then somewhere at the end we're told, Jacob, a man of God. I could do that. In fact, I think I have done it sometimes. My kids don't trust me anymore. They always have to go to Kim. It's like, hey, Kim, Mommy, is that true? And she has to verify it or no. Yes, that's true. No, no zombies. Yes, you need to take your medicine. All those things. She's got to make sure there's a filter to make sure the kids know, because I like to tricksy's my kids. And then they like to do it back to me sometimes. We played a game last night. Desiree likes to lie to me too. So it happens sometimes. I don't like him, because this is for reals. He's stealing all the stuff of his brothers. He's sneaky, conniving, getting away with it. That's the worst thing, getting away with it. Jacob, one of those guys in the Old Testament. I just don't think I like him. All right, let's go another thing. He's got more tricks up his sleeve. I know I don't like this guy. All right, now, to be fair, there's a part of this chapter right before here where he gets tricked by some old man, which is funny. Whenever a guy is getting tricked, it's fun to see this guy getting tricked. He falls in love with this hot-smoking girl, all right? It's great. Dad says, you can marry hot-smoking girl if you work for me for like 7 years. He's like, sweet, works for 7 years. And then Dad's like, sweet, let's get married. The hot-smoking girl comes down. And one of those fancy weddings with the big veils and stuff. People don't do that anymore. Remember back when you used to wear the big old veil? And they wear the big old veil. It's like, oh, it's so special when you finally get married. And then they come down the aisle. They get married. He picks the veil up. Surprise! Different girl. Dang it. And so now he's married to the wrong woman. And Dad's like, shit tricked you. 7 more years, you can get the pretty one. And, okay, 7 more years. And so he does get tricked some. That doesn't make me not like him anymore. It just makes me laugh at him, all right? You got fooled. But then he's like, how can I be mad to father-in-law? This is not good for any of you that are married. Don't be mad to your father-in-law, all right? Don't be mad at your father-in-law. But that's what he decides. I'm going to get my father-in-law. And so he makes a plan. He's finally married to Rachel. Soon after Rachel's the pretty one, all right? And this is Old Testament times. For those of you trying to teach your kids, get married, live together forever and ever and ever, don't take marital advice from the Old Testament, all right? Don't take marriage advice, because at this point in time, he's married to the older sister and the younger sister at the same time, and both of them have servant girls that work for him. He's married to both of them. So he's kind of got 4 wives. I don't recommend it, all right? One's enough. It's enough. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And one's enough. And Kim always gives me mean looks when I preach. I just don't know why it is. It's the Bible. It's not my fault that he married all those people. So Joseph, you remember Joseph because he's the guy with the coat with many colors, There's a musical on Broadway about him, Technicolor Dreamcoat. All right, sweet. And that's Joseph here, but he's like 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, he's way down at the bottom of this list of a bunch of kids. So there's a dozen kids. Joseph's like number 11 on this list of all these kids. And so soon after Rachel's given birth to Joseph, Jacob says to Laban, Laban's father-in-law, he says, please release me so that I can go home to my own country. Remember, he told Dad, a father-in-law, work for you for 7 years. Wrong wife. 7 more years. Right wife. All right, now he's ready to go home. I've worked for you for like a decade and a half. I'm tired of it. Let me take my wives, plural, I know, and children, for I have earned them by serving you, and let me be on my way. You certainly know how hard I've worked for you. Please listen to me, Laban replied. I have become wealthy, for the Lord has blessed me because of you. Tell me how much I owe you. Whatever it is, I'll pay you. And he's like, I don't want much. All right, he makes a deal. He's like, I don't want much. All I want is, you got sheep and goat and cattle, horses, all that stuff, whatever, all that stuff that you got. I only want the ones that are spotted. Back then, the ones that were solid were, considered, a nice white sheep, a nice perfect head of cattle and goat. Like, I only want the ugly spotted ones. That's the only kind I want. And he's like, that sounds like a deal, only the spotted ones. What he didn't know is that Jacob is taking the ugly spotted ones, and every time it's time for the goats to start having babies, he takes the spotted ones and he throws the spotted ones at all the girls, and he keeps the other ones away. So all of the babies that are being born are spotted. All the baby sheep that are being born are dark sheep, black sheep. All the goats are spotted goats. All the cows are striped cows or spotted cows. They're all like that because he's doing, they're zebras or something, I don't know. Go read it yourself. He does a whole chapter about how to breed animals, all right? It's not my thing. Rachel will tell you later if you want to know how it works. There's a whole chapter on breeding animals. You were talking about horses earlier, all right? It was important. A whole chapter about breeding animals. Like, we're going to get these, and I don't know, they stick them all together. He puts the regular ones away and only has the spotted ones breathing. And somebody's like, okay, time to go. I'm stealing only if I take regular ones. So he takes all the spotted ones, and there's like nothing left for father-in-law. Do you like this guy? I can't stand this guy. This guy is a bum. Everything about this guy is crooked. Everything about this guy is messed up. This guy, there is something wrong with him. So Laban, father-in-law, gets mad at him and says, I'm going to kill them. All right? Good idea. I'm a fan of Laban's right now. All right? Laban, get out there. Go kick his butt. Go take care of it. I am a fan of Laban's because I don't like this guy. Laban doesn't like this guy. Nobody likes this guy. He runs away as fast as he can. He finally decides, I'm going back home. Going back to my dad's house. Going back where Esau is. Remember, Esau hates his guts because he's stolen all this stuff from Esau. He gets all of his stuff ready. He's ready to cross the border. There's a river. He's going to cross the border into the land where Esau is. So this is his plan. He takes all of his servants and he sticks them out front, and then all of his cows and all of his cattle, and then his children, and then his wives. And he's like, I'm going to come last. That's like a man. That's a man right there for you. Like, look, I know Esau wants to kick my rear, so I'm going to put as much stuff between me and him as possible. If he wants to hack his way through, his swords are going to be dull by the time they get to me. They're going to kill all my cows. They're going to kill all my sheep. They're going to kill all my goats, all my kids, all my wives, then me. Come on. He's going to be tired by the time he gets to me. This guy is a scumbag. He is absolute garbage. There's nothing to say about it, but he is garbage. And he actually sends them across the river in the evening, and then he stays on the other side of the river. I'm going to camp out here. You guys, light some torches stuff. Make sure people know you're there. All right? See if anything bad happens. All right? Just stay over there. He's bad news. He's bad news. So he gets a visitor at night. That night, he's all by himself, and guess who shows up and meets with him? No, not Esau. Laban doesn't catch up to him. He's slow. God shows up. God shows up. And God decides, I'm going to kick this guy's rear. Seriously. God decides he's going to get a wrestling match. Come on, come on. They both put on spandex. They put those masks on. They're ready to go. That's the way I envision it. All right. God takes off his robe. He does. It's a sight to behold. And it was in that Bible movie, right? All right. So God puts on his spandex and his mask, and so does, and they start wrestling. And guess who's going to win? You know who's going to win, right? God's got to win, right? No, it's a draw. Can you believe it? That's how good this guy is. This guy pulls it to a draw with God. So God cheats at the end. God takes his big, strong finger, and he pokes him in the hip and breaks his hip. Gotcha. And he's like, oh, my goodness. And he's out. But God's like, hey, how's the pretty tough wrestling? I like that one where you went off the tree and did the flip and landed on me and were crushing me with your legs. And he's like, I'm going to give you a new name. Your name's no longer Jacob, the deceiver. He says, you wrestled with man and God and won. In fact, let's look at the passage. Is it up there? My thing is, why didn't God kick his rear? I wanted to put the word butt up there, but I didn't think I should say butt in church. So why didn't God kick his rear? Genesis 32:27. What is your name, the man asked. He replied, Jacob. He said, no longer will your name be Jacob, the man told him. From now on, you will be called Israel. You know the nation of Israel? That's this guy. The entire nation of Israel is named after this guy. He said, your name will be called Israel because you have fought with God and with men and have won. Please tell me your name, Jacob said. Why do you want to know my name? The man replied. Then he blessed Jacob there, and Jacob named the place Peniel. Now, I included this verse simply because the school is on a street called Peniel, and I know people think it's a weird-sounding name. This is where it comes from. It means the face of God, all right? It doesn't mean what all those high school guys think it means. Peniel, which means the face of God, for he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared. You know it. You've lived there long enough. You know. He says, I've seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared. Why? I hate this guy. Why would God not just say, you know what, we're going to wrestle, and I'm going to do some really cool flip, and then I'm going to throw him across the crossbar, and then I'm going to have my Jesus guy who's down on the other side of the rope hit him with the chair, and then, we're just going to knock him out, and we're going to move on. Move on. This guy's done, all right? And he's going to be one of those old wrestlers from the 80s that nobody cares about anymore. One of the Von something or others, and we're not going to care about him. But that's not what God did. God wrestled and wrestled. And it's like when I wrestle the Cambry. She beats me half the time too. All right? Oh, okay, you got me. God had to pull one of those things. Like, okay, you got me, Jacob. That's pretty good. You're tough. Yeah, that one was great. She does a spin thing, but when she does it, I'm actually picking her, spinning her while she does it, and she kicks me in the face. God had to have done that with Jacob, don't you think? Where God had to pick him up and say, watch this, Jacob. Look how cool. You're awesome. Did it by yourself, I'm sure. No. God says, you wrestled with me, you won. Why would God do that? He is a scumbag. I don't like this guy. And now you're going to name the whole country after him? He's going to be the father of all, the 12 tribes of Israel are this guy's kids? You got to be kidding me. This guy deserves all of that? And he wrestles with God, and God does, poke him in the hip. And it says it dislocates it, and for the rest of his life he limps around. But from this moment on, well, things start to change. I think we have one more verse. It says, then God said to Jacob, this is later on, get ready and move to Bethel. He's lived with Esau for a while. In fact, when Esau saw the people coming over, Esau didn't fight. Esau threw down his weapons, and he ran to Jacob, and he hugged him and said, I've missed you. See, that's how stupid Jacob was. Jacob always thought that he could trick his way to fame, fortune, love, all the other things. And it was the one time where he stopped being a trickster. And here on the other side of the border, his brother loved him. And his brother just wanted to hug him. His brother's like, look, I'm fine. You left. I raised my own family. I got married. I had my own cattle. Everything worked great. I'm good. I just miss you. And so he lived near his brother for years and years and years. And God finally said, I want you to move. And then God said to Jacob, get ready and move to Bethel and settle there. Bethel means the house of God. Bethel was the place where Jacob wrestled with God. Build an altar there to God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. And Jacob told everyone in his household, get rid of all your pagan idols. Purify yourself and put on clean clothing. We are now going to Bethel, where I will build an altar to the God who answered my prayers when I was in distress. He has been with me wherever I have gone. What's the point of the story of Jacob? Is I'm Jacob. I'm that kind of scum. I hate him, but I hate him because he's me. Because I'm a trickster and I like to play tricks on people, because I like to try to get whatever upper-handed, way I can. People accuse me of cheating when I'm just really that much better than them. And I'm that kind of scum. If I wish that God would knock down everybody like this, just kick their butt, you know what? I'm asking that God kicks mine. I'm asking that God beats me down. I'm asking that God tears me up. I'm asking that God shows me the door. I'm asking that God embarrasses me in front of my family and friends. I'm asking that God treat me mercilessly. because I'm that kind of scum. I have messed up. I have had problems. I have had issues. And every day I wake up and I say, God, please bless me. Every day I wake up and say, God, bless my family. Every day I wake up and say, God, forgive me, because I am a failure. And I have failed you in so many ways. And I have. And God said, move back to Bethel, the place where you met me. Go back to the house of God. And get rid of all those other things. And meet me there. Because he is the God who answers my prayer when I was in distress. If God tore every one of us up when we were in distress, none of us would be here. And the reality is every story that we get in the Bible about Jacob, except for the last one, is a story about him in distress. It's a story about him being torn up. But even in the midst of all of that, God still loved him. And God pursued him. And in the end, God redeemed him. What is the great story about Jacob? It's not just that we always hear, Jacob, father of the nation. His name was changed to Israel. You know, the 12 tribes came out of him. What's important about it is that he was scum like you and me. But he was redeemed. You may be living in the beginning of this story where everything seems to be wrong. But I promise you, for every single one of us, there is an end to the story. An end where we can find ourselves at Bethel, at the house of God. We can find ourselves at Bethel, worshiping him and remembering that he's been with me wherever I've gone. Would you pray?